Anybody, anywhere,
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen.
This pass caught by Paulsen, the tight end.
And from 106.7 The Fan, Grant Paulsen.
Welcome into Take Command. Logan Paulsen played a decade in the NFL. I'm Grant Paulsen. You can listen to me on 106.7 The Fan. You can watch this podcast on the 106.7 and Team 980 YouTube channels. You can listen wherever you get your audio. Please subscribe, rate, review, do all that podcasty stuff. And please spread the word. We've got 3 episodes a week that we drop for you in this feed that hopefully Commanders fans enjoy. Logan, Happy New Year, buddy. How are you?
Happy New Year, man. I'm doing good. Yeah, excited to watch some college football. I'm not a big college football guy, outside of the college football playoff because I get a lot of football in other places, but I'm excited to watch some football.
So it's funny you say that. I'm, I guess, a very casual college football fan. I enjoy it. Yeah. I really like it. But because I watch so much NFL ball, because I'm so useless to my wife and family on Sundays, it's just that I can't do the same thing on Saturday.
Right. Yeah,
college, so it kind of like doesn't get the same attention. Is that what you mean, or do you like the game less, actually?
Yeah. So some people are like diehard college football fans, and I have no issue with those people. There's something about, like, for me, the crispness of the NFL game compared to college football. Like, I just think, like, the quarterback play, the way offensive line play is, the pass rush, the coverage skills. Like, I just like that it's the best, quote unquote, best version. In college football, there's a little bit more, serendipity, a little bit more luck, kind of feels to me a little bit more akin to high school, because like you get a good roster, you load the guys up. I will say, after watching some Ohio State film for some of the prospects we're going to talk about here in a little bit, like, it's cool to see like Patricia turning that group into like a NFL defense and them kind of playing NFL rules, bringing NFL blitzes. And so, maybe as this, as the college football landscape becomes more like the haves and have-nots, those have schools are going to start playing NFL football, basically. And I think that'd be interesting to kind of keep an eye on over the next couple of years.
Patricia's Matt Patricia, who's the defensive coordinator of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Logan mentions them because they've got a few projected top 10 picks who could end up, who knows, here in Washington, depending on where they make their first selection. We are going to talk about the NFL draft and about the Commanders selection, currently projected to be at number 7, in just a little bit on this pod. But we'd be remiss if we didn't wind the season down in our traditional manner, looking ahead to the matchup, a Week 18 game here against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road in Philly. There was some thought a couple of weeks ago that maybe the Eagles wouldn't need this game and they'd be sitting starters, and they don't need this game on the binary. They have won the division, they have made the playoffs, but they are still controlling some of the seeding and where they could end up in the NFC, and they have a chance to climb as high as number 2 overall, and it would change the matchup that you get. Maybe you get Green Bay instead of the LA Rams, which feels a little bit more favorable at this point. So they're supposedly going to give it a go. I mean, Nick Sirianni says they're not sitting starters. They're going to try to win this game. Are you surprised at all, with seeding being all that's on the line, that they wouldn't use this as a little bit more of a pre-playoff respite to kind of load up and get fresh?
No, actually, I'm not. I do think, like, one of the things that is really valuable with that second seed is you get 2 home games. And so, like, let's say you do have to play, I don't know what the seeding ends up being. Let's say you do have to play LA. I'd much rather play the Rams at the Link than at SoFi, personally. Like, it's just a tougher trip. It's a longer trip. Your fans are here. Philly's got a great home field advantage. Like, why not lead into that? And so I think if you're trying to win the Super Bowl, you want to kind of make the road as easy as possible. Obviously, you're not the 1 seed anymore, but I do think having those opportunities to get home games for a team like Philly is really, really important. And, maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking this game will be over in the third quarter. We can rest some guys then. Because quite frankly, like, when I look at the Philadelphia offense specifically, we're going to talk about this in more detail in a second, like, they need reps. Like, they are not playing good football at the moment. So, like, to me, like, if I'm Sirianni, if I'm the head coach of the Eagles, I'm saying, man, we need to get you guys on the field a little bit more, get some of these chemistry issues worked out a little bit. And that's not just from the quarterback to the receiver. That's with the offensive line. That's with the running backs. Like, there's a bunch of things that need to be corrected. So maybe he's also looking at it from that lens as well.
I just feel like when you get this deep into the year, you are what you are too.
I think there's something to that, yeah.
Dude, we're in week 18, and they're still having these halves. The second half where they had like 18 yards or whatever, and it just was gross. And you're talking about chemistry and continuity and watching the Hard Knocks episode Tuesday night. We're taping on Wednesday, so last night for me. And, he's talking after the game about having a lot of things to clean up on offense. This just is what they are. It's just it's going to be a boom or bust unit that goes quarters where it looks terrible.
And it's not even like quarters, man. I mean, you go 0 for 8, like in terms of completed passes. They were 0 for 7 in a game earlier this year in the second half. Like ESPN put out a stat that we were using on one of our shows. That's like the first team since 1978 to go 0 for passing in the second half and win games. Like, it's just an unprecedented level of dysfunction at the moment offensively for them. And again, like, they are a dangerous group. Devontae Smith's a beast, AJ Brown's a beast, Saquon's a beast, Dallas Goedert's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. That offensive line, even without Lane Johnson, is very talented. It's just they can't get out of their own way. Like, I was doing something for the film breakdown show for the Commanders that I do, and something that came out, it was like they're running this concept on, it was like 2nd and 8. And they're running like what I would call like a CO concept. But instead of CO, the out runner, the corner and an out.
Describe CO.
Yeah, CO is a 12-yard corner and a 5-yard out. But instead of the out runner running an out, he just sits down. And you're running drive on the backside. And the drive, so the drive is a shallow cross and a basic, and a dig. And so the drive runner and the out are in exactly the same spot. The corner's right behind that. The dig runner, which is supposed to be probably like 12 to 14-yard dig, maybe 15-yard dig, is at 20 yards on the dig. Like, the timing's terrible. It's a 3-man rush right in front, and Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, escapes to his right. And so, like, you're running into pressure. The offense has these moments where you're like, I know everyone wants to give Jalen Hurts a lot of heat, and he deserves a lot of heat. Like, he's the quarterback of that offense. Most important position in football. Like, you have to take some of that. But also, there's just some design elements and some execution elements that you're like, that cannot be what this is supposed to look like. And you, as the quarterback, you can make it right, sit in there, throw that backside dig. Like, why are we escaping out of the pocket? So there's all these things that kind of layer on themselves when you watch their offense. And like, that's not even talking about the run game. We can talk about that more in a second. But there's tons of things like that when you watch a game, especially like the Bills game, where you're like, this team, this offense is so far away from some of these other offenses in the NFL. And it's such a weird juxtaposition to compare the offensive execution with the defensive execution, because the defense is executing at maybe one of the highest levels in the NFL. And the offense is kind of at the other end of the spectrum. It's very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's just coaching for me. I mean, Vic Fangio's incredible. Does a really, really good job with their defense. But Tulo's a first-time guy who's kind of in over his head, it feels like, a little bit. And they stuck with him, and you give him credit, I guess, for the continuity of the season. But what's really interesting is, like, we're talking about this, and I could just hear people at home saying, well, you guys act like they're so bad, but they always win. They're unbelievably talented, number one. Like, super elite level roster construction that is best of its era kind of group. On top of that, you look at the Bills game. They won a really hard game to win. You go to Buffalo in that weather, on the road, you get a win. That's so impressive. They basically shut the Bills out for most of the game. Like, they were amazing on defense. We're not saying the team isn't good. We're saying this offense is so flawed. They went 3 and out 5 times on 5 of their 10 drives in Buffalo. 3 and out. The last 4 drives of the game, they went 3 and out, trying to put the game away. They've gone 3 and out more than any other team in the NFL this year.
Is that true?
Oh, dude, by far.
That's crazy. I mean, it makes sense when you watch film, but that is a extremely telling statistic. Oh, my
gosh.
Dude,
how about this? They have the 9th most out of 448 teams since 2012 in 3 and outs.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
9th
That's
insane. Out of 450 teams, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, with Saquon Barkley, with arguably the best O-line in the NFL, with a quarterback they pay $50 million a year to. I mean, they far and away have the most. So, like, something is completely broken here. And it's one of those things where if you're going to just dismiss it and go, they're winning, well, you don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
you either kind of take out the shovel and dig in or you don't. But I do think it'll be the fatal flaw. Like, they could go on a run because of this defense. You saw how they played the Bills. You're not going to deal with a better player or an offense that presents more problems. So they could win playoff games that way. But it's just I like to say it's a very narrow runway to put the plane down on.
No, I think that's right. I think that's exactly how I see it too. Again, because the defense is that good. It's on the same level, especially over the last 6 or 7 weeks. It's on the same level as Seattle. We talk about Minnesota being able to take over a game. Like, those groups, like, this is in that same pantheon. And I actually think in a lot of ways they have better personnel than both of those defenses I just referenced. So I look at this and I say, like, if I'm a defensive player, I'm just incredibly frustrated because, like, they do everything. I don't want to say this is going to sound hyperbolic, but they play 90% of the game about as well as you can play it, right? Like, when they get a motion, everyone knows the check. When they get this heavy personnel, everyone knows their fits. Everyone's getting downhill. Everyone's attacking their gap. It's awesome to watch. And you said it comes down to coaching. Vic Fangio has been excellent. And so, like, for us to be playing, or the defense to be playing at that level, like, literally, like, beautiful. If you're a football fan, going to watch Philly's defense is a pleasure. You're just like, man, that's awesome. Great man coverage here by Quinion Mitchell. Excellent rush here by Carter. Great 4-man compression of the pocket here versus Josh Allen. Like, Zach Bond, the coverage instincts here to match the quarterback's eyes and take away this throw. Like, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And then you just flip. Didn't you just say, oh, I just watched 70 plays. Pretty damn good football. Now let's watch the offense. And you're like, this is gross. Runs aren't targeted correctly. They're not communicating well on the offensive line, right? Like, and again, I can't pinpoint one thing because it's every level of the offense that is having a hard time. Like, I know people want to give Jalen Hurts all the credit, and I think Jalen Hurts is a flawed player that gets a lot of hype because he wins a lot of games, but not all of it's on him, right? And so I think, like, that's the thing that's so difficult to kind of tack down with this offense is, like, they're not going to win the Super Bowl because of this group, unless Jalen Hurts does Jalen Hurts things and just in big moments just plays out of his mind like he does occasionally. But yeah, man, it is a baffling group to watch at the moment.
Strange, it really is. And it's harder to explain, because the results seem to always be there. But Roseman built a really good roster, and if you do that, you could cover up some deficiencies. One of the backdrop storylines of this game is going to be the way that the last one between these two teams ended because of how recently it was. I mean, this was not week 4, right? Just 2 weeks ago, these teams play. They get into basically a practice level melee in the middle of the field. Punches are thrown, dudes are ejected. And then after the game, it was very obvious that from Dan Quinn all the way on down, they didn't like how it was handled in the Washington locker room, that the Eagles went for 2. Quinn even went as far as to say, like, we see them again in 2 weeks, basically throwing the gauntlet down. I don't know how you see that. I view that as, like, it would kind of be embarrassing now to just roll over and get punked. Like, nobody's going to care that much at the end of this lost season. Everyone's just going to go home after the game. It's not like anyone's going to lose sleep. But that said, like, when you say that, it kind of felt a little bit tough for me because I was like, bro, like, we have no guns to bring to this fight. Like, why are we pay? But you can't get punked. You can't let other teams just make fun of you and yell at you and slap you around in front of everyone and not do anything about it. But it would look really bad to me if they don't put up a fight here.
No, I'm with you. And I think that's one of the things I'm encouraged about this game. And a game that really, like you said, doesn't have a lot of meaning to it. Like, you're always looking for ways to provide meaning, kind of like that Michael Jordan. And, like, I took offense to that. So if you can get, like, if Dan Quinn can get the roster motivated to play hard, play a physical brand of Commanders football here, like, I think that's excellent. I think that's ultimately what you're looking for here in a game like this. So if that little extra bit of emotional, sauce, is drizzled on this game, great. Because I want to see a competitive, tough football game. I want to see guys get after it. And I think, again, if you bring a little bit of that divisional rivalry, no one likes playing Philly, the emotion of the last game to this game, I think that's exactly what you're looking for. If you're a fan, and again, like, you can't go out and get punked, right? Because you've said all these things, you've presented this information. Let's go do it. You laid down the gauntlet, man. Let's go fight a little bit. And I think that's something, as a fan of football, in a game, again, that doesn't have a lot of meaning for the Commanders and really for the Eagles outside of seeding. Like, let's make it mean something. Let's go play a good game.
You played for Dan Quinn in Atlanta. How much do you expect him to be mentioning and bringing up what happened this week? It is so recent, everybody's going to remember it. I mean, just knowing the little bit I do on the outside and how he talks about like fighting and let's get down and like some of the phrases he uses, seems to me like a no-brainer. But how much of a build-up thing do you think this will be? Especially, as you said, you're looking for a way to motivate a team that's got its bags packed for vacation.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3 Cabo, right?
Right.
I think he'll bring it up. I think it meant something to him, and I think like when he says in his post-game presser, and again, like I haven't talked to him directly about this, and I probably wouldn't do that ever, but like for him in the post-game presser to be like, well, remember that I wouldn't have handled that way. Like those are meaningful things for a head coach to say. For a guy that's as measured and as controlled and as on message as Dan, like he's not saying anything by accident. So I'm sure it came up this week. I'm sure, Bobby Wagner brought it up this week in the linebacker. I'm sure it's in the building. And again, as players, like this game is so physically violent. Sometimes you just need something. Like you just need something to get yourself through the day. And I think this might be a great opportunity and a great, kind of bulletin board material to get that done.
Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen take command. We're starting with a quick look at the Week 18 matchup with the Eagles. We're going to get into some draft prospects from this 2026 draft class that Logan watched, many of whom will be playing this weekend in the college football playoffs. We'll do that coming up in just a few. Hey, I wanted to look real quick at Bill, who ripped off the 72-yarder, back-to-back games now where he's gone 95 yards plus. Rodriguez has missed 2 of the last 3 with an injury and then kind of a fluky illness thing on Christmas. So when he came back in that sandwich game in the middle, he was the guy that got most of the work. And I would imagine if he's able to play, that'll happen again in this game. But watching the tape and seeing what you did, I mean, the 72-yard run was so perfectly blocked. You had Allegretti in the lane. You had Burke sealing it off, Bates in the backfield. I wonder what they can build on and take out of that in terms of getting Bill in space, trying to finish the season with another big, long run. It's not going to be 72 yards, but what did you see in the run game when you studied them? And this is a much tougher group, Philadelphia, to run the ball on. But what do you make of them being able to get Bill going again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be really interesting to see what kind of plan they come through. I think they've had some really good success this year with kind of that outside zone stuff that they've been bringing to the table, which is always fun to see. I'm a big outside zone guy, and seeing the tight ends and the guys on the perimeter really get those combinations locked in, like Connerly's done a great job with some of that stuff. It's awesome. So what I would say is I don't know if those types of runs would apply in this game. I think you want to attack downhill a little bit more. I look at the Bears game, for example, where they gave up, I think it was like 250 yards rushing, and I watched that game in detail. And I think they did a great job of just making it hard to fit runs, like giving unconventional looks. And I was really pleased, actually, with the way that Cliff called some of the runs, with some of the motions, like setting up the reverse, setting up the screen, just kind of giving a little bit of eye candy to offset those guys and put them in a position where where you're showing them something and then kind of reversing expectations there. And so this game, you're going to need to be pretty locked in on run design, how to create angles, how to get them to block themselves. And I think hopefully they'll be able to do that, because it's not going to be, like you said, it's not going to be running on the Dallas Cowboy defense. It's not going to be like, oh, hey, perfect outside zone. Everybody, has got hats on hats and we're running 72. This is going to be a much more, I think, a litmus test for the young runner, quite honestly, and saying like, this is not going to be a home run every time you get the opportunity. It's not. So, like, how do you handle patient, methodical, physical runs, and then kind of biding your time for that explosive opportunity? Because I think, the first Philly game, I think he did a pretty good job of that. And obviously Chris Rodriguez like majors in that. So I think a combination, a healthy dose of both of them will be good. But I think when he does get his carries, it's going to be much, much different than he had against the Giants, than he had against the Cowboys, because this defense is so much more physical, so much faster. And again, they're so much more disruptive in the 4-man front.
All right, before we get out of here, we'll give you a couple things that we want to see in this game. But next, let's check in on some of the top draft prospects that Logan watched the initial tape on over the last week and get some thoughts from him that could help us as we get ready to watch the college football playoffs, see some potential future Commanders. This is Take Command. Welcome back, Take Command. You can watch the show on the 106.7 The Fan and Team 980 YouTube channels. Listen wherever you get your audio. So, Logan, as people check this podcast out, the college football playoffs are ongoing. You may be listening to this after Miami played Ohio State on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. You've got Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana, Ole Miss, and Georgia all playing. And I know you watched the tape on a plethora of the guys who will be playing in these games that are in the first round mix and could very well end up being picked by Washington. So I want to go through some of the specifics here, but I actually want to start with the Ohio State Buckeyes because they've got a cavalry of really, really good players that are in the top 10 conversation. This is the number 2 team in America. A lot of people feel like they're going to win the national championship. But linebacker Arvell Reese, DB Caleb Downs, wide receiver Carnell Tate, and linebacker Sonny Styles are all pretty special players. So you tell me where you want to start with the Buckeyes class of projected early first rounders.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I know the game happened last night, but if you want to go back and watch, these are definitely guys that are going to be in the conversation for that top 10 area. I think Arvell Reese is the guy that I kind of point to as maybe being the first non-quarterback, first defensive player off the board. At least that's the hype at the moment. He plays in this Matt Patricia defense where he's kind of this spy edge hybrid linebacker player that doesn't really have a home. But he is a good-looking son of a gun, man, and he can run to the football now. He's got long arms on the edge. He has great knockback power against tackles. I think about him and, this defense with Dan Quinn and what he did with Micah Parsons, and that's kind of the athlete and the piece you're talking about. Watching him as a blitzer, he's excellent. Watching him as a pass rusher, he's just got juice. He's 6'4.5". He's 243, 245 pounds. So he's kind of in this new era of linebacker mold. And again, he wasn't a full-time edge rusher at Ohio State. They didn't want to use him that way. I think he can probably do that. If you feel like he can do that, I feel like he becomes a top 5 pick in this NFL draft. And again, he just helps himself every time he plays football. Because I don't know if I told you the story, but I was watching a receiver from Notre Dame. And I was like, who is this joker that is flying all over the field? And it was Arvell Reese. And so to have a guy like that with that kind of a body type, really special. And so talk about difference makers in the defense, talk about a guy that another team might want to trade up for. That's the kind of conversation you're having with a guy like Arvell Reese. Then you talk about Sonny Styles, maybe the best.
Before you move on from Reese, I'll follow up on that. 62 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and he broke up 2 passes. So to be clear, you think there's a path. You mentioned Micah, where Micah's now just an edge. Nobody even talks about him as an off-ball linebacker. You're saying if a team liked him there, they could do that. Let's just say hypothetically, and I don't think this will happen. I don't even know how, but Washington gets him. They pick 7th. He's probably going to be gone. Let's say they move up to 4th this weekend in the draft order, and then he falls into their lap. Would you just put him at edge, or would you play him off the ball? I mean, he's obviously not a green dot. How do you view him in this defense as a rookie?
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem with him as a prospect is that you have to kind of make that decision and make that assessment based on your defensive philosophy and defensive personnel. So to me, for Dan and for this defense, I think you need difference makers on the edge, and I think he would provide that type of skill set for you. Is he raw and green as a pass rusher? Yes, but does he have natural pass rush instincts? I would also say yes. And so could he be the spinner for you in the defensive front? I think so. And so here for this defense, for this personnel, I think it's an interesting thought experiment to just get him on that defensive end spot and just let him get after the quarterback and kind of simplify the picture for him. But if you say, hey, we want him to be an off the ball kind of will player, they could also do that. So I just think there's more value, at defensive end and edge rusher. So that's where I'd kind of direct, at least initially. There's still a lot of football left to be watched on him for me. I've watched, game and a half. I want to watch more. But that's the vibe I'm getting from him at the moment.
He could go as high as, who knows, maybe number 2 overall. As you said, first quarterback is going to go 1. Maybe that's Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore. And then if a quarterback doesn't go second, he's in play right there, depending on who has the pick. All right, you were going to go Sonny Styles next, the linebacker from Ohio State, who's got 80 tackles, half sack, broken up 3 passes, has an interception, a fumble forced, a little bit more of a traditional second-level guy.
I mean, he's a big, good-looking son of a gun, too. So Reese, I think, is number 8. I think Styles is 0. So if you're kind of keeping track of who these guys are, like watching the games or watching the highlights, these are the guys we're talking about. Styles is 6'5". I think he was 248. So big dude for an off-ball player, and has great instincts in terms of fitting the run, man. Just has this really nice glide. He's got long arms to get offensive linemen off of him. There are times where the height hurts him a little bit. Guys get under him, but dude can flat out run. And so I look at both of these pieces, and the fact they're both on the same team is kind of mind-boggling to me. And I know linebacker is not traditionally a position of value. I think that also speaks to kind of the composition of this draft class. There's not a lot of stud wide receivers, like true, like that guy is, Calvin Johnson level, Julio Jones level receiver. So I think a guy like Sonny Styles might move up people's draft boards and just be in a better position to kind of just say we need an impactful defensive player, even though off-ball linebacker has been kind of devalued. That's the kind of athlete he is. That's the kind of physicality that he brings. And in this kind of unusual draft landscape at the moment, he would be a very compelling person to improve the defense right away.
Feels to me like while he'll be there at 7, like if they were to move back a little bit in the first round, he could be the ideal guy that, okay, now you move back 5-6 spots, you take him and you got something else too in rounds 2 or 3 or whatever.
No, I think that's exactly right. And Sonny Styles, off-ball linebacker is such an interesting position. And everyone always talks about draft value. And again, if you think he's that dude, which again, like all indications, brief film watching that I've done, seems like he's got that kind of playmaking ability. But this is where do you get some of these other players we're going to talk about in a moment? Like, does Francis Monangai with a good college football playoff move up the board? He's the right tackle for Miami. Does he move up, and does he bump a guy like Sonny Styles down where you could trade out of that spot because you're set at the offensive line? Those are some other interesting kind of things that this playoff brings, is maybe they get other positions that are traditionally more valuable in the draft to move up, and you bump guys like Styles down so you can trade out of that spot if you're the Commanders and get a really good football player kind of in that 10 to 15 pick range.
All right, let's talk about maybe the guy that's been linked to Washington more than any other player over the last month or so, and that is Ohio State safety Caleb Downs, who's 6 foot, 205 pounds, playmaker who's made 60 tackles, has a sack, couple of PBUs, couple interceptions this year. They move him all over the place. He is a very versatile defender.
Yeah, Downs, man, he started for Nick Saban as a freshman, just to give you some idea of what he is as a football player and his composition. No freshman starts for Nick Saban. That defense is very complicated. The standard is very, very high. And so for him, I think you're seeing a guy, again, safeties are traditionally not valued in this way. I don't know how great of an athlete he is, but he is a football playing Jesse. And I mean that as the biggest compliment of all, right? He is like a Birch, for Detroit, one of these guys that is just
a Branch.
Just good at football. And so the intelligence, the physicality, the instincts are tremendous with him. So that's where I'd say this feels high. Where the Commanders picking 8, 7
right now? 7, but they're not going to pick worse than that. They could be better than that.
Yeah. So 7 seems a little high for a true safety, but I think it just speaks to the caliber of football player that he had, the mental capacity he has as a football player, the instincts that he brings to the position, and that's why people are talking about him as high as 7.
You've also seen a little bit of, I don't want to call it quite an awakening, but star safety play in this league is in vogue right now. Yeah. And it's coming on in a big way. And you'd have to speak to this, but it does seem like, I've always said, I remember when I was at the Combine on the beat years ago, I went around one year and talked to all the head coaches that were defensive minded I could find and all the D coordinators when Washington was building a 3-4. And I'm like, hey, what do you have? Where should they start? If you don't have blank, you have no chance. And they're like, nose tackle, and they gave me 2 spots, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like nowadays, more so than then, if you don't have a really impactful playmaking safety, you're in a bad way in terms of trying to generate takeaways. And I think it's a it's part of the issue that they had this year. So while I'm with you about picking 1-7, it feels a little rich for me. I wonder if that's like in Penn now and it used to be in Sharpie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and I think it also was a testament not only to the composition of this, top 15 of the draft, but it's also a testament to him. Like the film is excellent, right? He is an impactful stud of a player. I just think the problem, like that old kind of philosophy you mentioned, nose tackle, like is teams are throwing the football more now, right? And so the communication in the back end, these checks are really important. Everyone thinks that's the green dot. I look at Will Harris's addition and what it's done for guys like Jeremy Reeves and Quan Martin in terms of affecting positive play performance. Like imagine getting another kind of pseudo green dot in terms of intellect in that back half where we can get the checks communicated. We can make sure everyone's on the same page. I think that's what Caleb Downs brings at maybe a premium.
So is Downs, so they benched Quan Martin this week, and Dan acknowledged that. It was the second time this year they benched him. Now, he went on to praise him and say that he still thinks highly of him and all these things, but he's had a very disappointing season. Would he play the Quan Martin role, or is he more of the Will Harris role?
So to me, I think Quan's going to be more of a box player at some point, and I think that's the beauty of Caleb Downs. At least the stuff I've seen so far is I think he can do both. I think he's a pretty good tackler. I think he's got decent ball skills, and I think that's what you're getting.
Where is he more valuable? Like where can he become more of an impactful player?
I think it depends on what you think about guys like Quan Martin, right? Like I think Quan is excellent in the box. I think he's really, really good in that area. Jeremy Reeves, very, very good there. And so for this team, I think probably more in the post, getting things communicated, coverage situations, because again, you have guys that are more box players, downhill players. And again, like I got to watch more. I got to kind of study how he is as a blitzer, how he is in the run fit. I think he's good in the run fit, but like, is he exceptional? Like that's stuff that'll come the more I study him as a player.
Yeah, it also seems like it's easier to find the box safety. More guys can do that at a higher level than a guy that's playing center field and doing things deep at the position. One other Buckeye I wanted to mention, it's the other side of the ball. His name has not come up with Washington nearly as much, but I think that's just because people either assume or aren't as interested in drafting a wide receiver really high. But Carnell Tate, their number one wide receiver right now, is projected to go in that like 5 to 9 range, which is where Washington's going to be drafting. And I'm not opposed, by the way. My quarterback is the thing that I care the most about, developing Jaden Daniels. I would have no problem with them taking a wideout. But this kid, Carnell Tate's huge, 6'3", almost 200 pounds, 48 grabs for 840 yards, 9 touchdowns. He is a really, really big dude who this year has flourished in the red area with those 9 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up Carnell Tate because I think he is a really dynamic playmaker for that group. I always have a hard time evaluating Ohio State wide receivers because they are just kind of better. The offense is just better. They do a good job creating space. And so you're watching, Carnell Tate versus directional Mississippi State at some point. And you're like, cool, like that guy's going to be pumping gas here at some point. Like, what can I really take away from this? And I do think in this year's draft class, like there are other players that I would look to and say maybe they're better at playing receiver right now than Carnell Tate is. Again, you're looking at the projection, you're looking at the height, the weight, the speed, the ball skills, and you say, I think he's going to become something really special. But I look at guys like Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, man, and that guy is a stud. Right. So if I'm taking a receiver, and again, he has injury baggage, things that are going to kind of pull him down here that maybe get him out of the top 15. But in terms of the style of receiver that is getting open in the NFL now, I would look to Jordan Tyson, right? Or even Makai Lemon, from USC in terms of like really good route runners that catch the ball at a high level. And I'm not saying Carnell Tate's not that guy. I just think there's other guys that if you're going to take a receiver high that I would look to. And again, there's issues with both those players. Makai Lemon's more of a smaller slot, think kind of Amon-Ra St. Brown type analogous, right? And again, Jordan Tyson is 6'2", 200 pounds. Dude, his film is excellent. The way he tracks the football, excellent. The way he runs routes, excellent. Can win from multiple positions. Like that's the dude I want. But again, has not been healthy, I think, in 4 years at Arizona State. So like Carnell Tate maybe is the safest guy, but I think there's other receivers that are better, quote unquote, receivers that get me excited, kind of in that range.
All right, a few other guys here playing in the college football playoffs that we should hit on that I know you watched, Logan. People may not have had the opportunity to see Ruben Bain when Ohio State played Miami, but you can go back and look him up. He's now played 2 college football playoff games, the edge from Miami. What do you think of Ruben Bain?
Dude, he's maybe one of the most interesting guys that I've watched recently. And again, I've watched like a game and a half on him, so there's more I got to watch. He's like a different type of body type for an edge. He's like 6'3", like 275, 285-ish kind of guy. He almost looks more like a 3 technique, not the super long arms. And so I think the thing is I was expecting a guy with that build to play with just tremendous like knockback power, like Jared Verse level knockback power. And I just didn't really see that from him. And I saw a guy that really had good bend on the perimeter, but maybe not the best get off, maybe not the best hands. And for a guy that I want to take in the top 10, like, I don't know if he fit the bill. Like Akeem Mesidor, excuse me, the guy that plays opposite him, number 3. So Ruben Bain's number 4, Akeem Mesidor is number 3. I thought, again, in that Texas A&M game specifically, was significantly better. More dynamic as a pass rusher, more move diversity, stronger hands, more dexterous with his hands. And now, again, he's had some injury issues too. They're gonna push him down some boards. But I do think in terms of college football playoff, like Ruben Bain can make himself a lot of money here if he just shows that he can win more consistently in different ways. And so I look at both those guys, and again, I'm high on the Akeem Mesidor. Again, I've watched one game of those guys, so like still more to do there in terms of evaluation. But I was reading something today that a lot of teams see Ruben Bain as potentially a 3 technique. So I don't know, again, if I want to take a guy that's going to switch positions in the NFL and say, hey, like, you're going to be a top 10 guy for us. So that's where I'm at Ruben Bain. Again, more evaluation needs to be done. But Akeem Mesidor is a guy that really jumped out to me, kind of playing opposite him.
42 tackles, 7.5 sacks, with an interception and a forced fumble this year for Ruben Bain. One other guy that I know you watched from this college football playoff group was David Bailey from Texas Tech.
Man.
Bailey's a really interesting guy whose name is now really climbing draft boards. Most mocks have him somewhere in the like 7 to 15 range. This is an edge from Texas Tech who's 6'3", 250, and more so than Bain and a lot of the other edges in this class, the production is there. He had 13.5 sacks this year.
Dude, he is fun to watch. Like I got, I'm not saying he is this guy, but I got heavy like Robert Mathis vibes from this guy. Kind of a little bit sawed off, shorter guy, plays with great strength in his hands. Great snap, has a spin move, has a get off that'll kill you. Now, the thing with him is like he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he has the juice, man. I think he leads all FBS according to PFF's pressure metrics. He has like 71, which is pretty diabolical for a college football player. So he's the guy, man. If you want to juice up your pass rush right now, like we talked about Ruben Bain, he's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, a little bit more of a run player first. Like David Bailey is Ricky Bobby, man. Dude wants to go fast. He's strong. He's got a bunch of different pass rush moves. He's got a great feel for rushing the passer, transferred from Stanford, graduated in 4 years, man. Like this is, I'm very high on this guy, and I got to watch more games because again, they're playing like the level of competition that Texas Tech played this year compared to Miami, compared to Ohio State, very, very different. But he's an impressive ball player. So if you, again, like one of the big issues with the Commanders was pass rush. If you want to solve your pass rush issues at 7, of the guys I've watched, which is not everybody, but this is the guy that I would look to and say, that is the pass rusher of this group.
Wow. So this would be if they really want an edge and they're staying put at 7 and they're hell-bent on taking one, this is the guy you would take.
Yeah, because I think everyone's going to look around at the edges and say, oh, like there's some other names that people are maybe more familiar with. And those guys are bigger, like 3-4 type edge body, like down lineman bodies. Like Kedrick Falk is 6'6", 290. Like he's probably going to move inside. Ruben Bain, people are already talking about him moving inside, right? Peter Woods is like this 3 technique, 5 technique from Clemson. He's probably going to move inside full time because he's 6'3", 315, right? They're all these kind of bigger, heavier guys. LT Overshown from Alabama, 6'5", 280. Like there are some good football players in this class, but in terms of pass rush juice in that top 10 area, I'm not sure there's a guy of these top 5 or 6 defensive ends that I would look to and say, that guy's going to juice us up right away the way we want to. Now, if you want to take, Kedrick Falk and move him inside and have him play opposite Deron Payne and kind of be in that mix on the interior, maybe that's the way you go. But in terms of just juice off the edge, this feels like the guy you'd take in the top 15.
For people that don't follow college football that closely, Texas Tech's pretty fascinating. Basically, this is the game at that level now in 2025. They went out and bought an entire new defense. They brought in 11 new starters, I think it was, at every position in their portal, including him from Stanford. But like the whole defense is just like free agency. And they, for the first time ever, have just an elite best defense in America at a school in a conference where that just wasn't possible before.
And again, like talking about matchups, like he's going up against Isaiah World, who's kind of going to be like the 2nd, 3rd round developmental tackle prospect. So like that's an NFL football player. He's going to be playing at Oregon. And so again, I want to see how he looks against slightly better competition, but yeah, man, I was really impressed when I cut the tape on him.
Yeah, watch that game. Enjoy that. That's part of the playoff. That's at noon on New Year's Day. Oregon and Texas Tech, the 5 and the 4, if that game hasn't started yet as you're listening to this pod. All right, Logan, anybody else that you want to hit that you watched a little bit of this week, playoff, non-playoff?
Yeah, so I think the 2 guys that I would just kind of call attention to, and the reason, so let me list 4 guys off here real quick. 2 of them are offensive linemen. I know that's not a huge concern for the Commanders, but like, for example, Francis Monungai, everyone's got him kind of in that 15 range. If he ends up being the best offensive lineman in this class and has an excellent college football playoff, like, and he's in that kind of people. So people trade up for a couple things, right? Grant, they trade up for quarterback, trade up for offensive lineman, trade up for pass rusher. So if one of these dudes, if Francis Monungai has an awesome college football playoff and moves up the board, and you get a team that wants to dance and you can trade back, like that's something I would keep an eye on if he comes out as an absolute stud. He's the right tackle for Miami. He's 6'6", 335. And then the other one is Caden Proctor. And so Caden Proctor is the left tackle for Alabama and is one of the most interesting prospects that I've ever watched. He's 6'7", he's 370, he's 19 years old, and he's playing big time, like basically professional football in the SEC, and looks like an absolute stud. If someone falls in love with him and his pre-draft process goes well, like, can you get somebody that's going to kind of want to do the dance and trade up with him? Right now, I got him, at least in the initial mock drafts, kind of somewhere between 25 and 35. But if he has a day and has a couple and a really solid college football playoff run, like, does he move into that group where teams are talking about, we got to trade up with Washington to get out of there? So those are 2 guys that I watched. Again, very unique, some shortcomings with both of them, but really good football players that are in the playoff. And then Kenyon Sadiq, if you're looking for offensive playmakers, is maybe the most dynamic tight end in this year's class. He's 6'3", he's 245, can absolutely haul. But in terms of playmaker at that kind of H-back spot, like, he fits the bill. 7 seems a little bit high for me for that, because I think he is a little bit of green, a little bit raw. But like, if you're looking for offensive playmakers in kind of that trade back position, maybe that's one. And maybe the most important person for Commanders fans in this entire playoff is Dante Moore. Like, without a doubt, full stop. If that guy plays well over the next couple of weeks, like, he is probably going to come out. And then all of a sudden now there are 2 quarterbacks in this draft, and teams are more likely to trade up in that scenario with Washington. So I think if you're a Washington fan, you are rooting for Dante Moore to have an absolutely baller playoff, so that teams feel that they need to trade up with Washington to get that player.
By that same logic, don't you think Ty Simpson's important too?
Yeah, I kind of think.
He may not have the ceiling to go in the top 3 or something, but if he worked, like, teams are so desperate to overdraft quarterbacks. If he got hot and went on a run here, I could see him being a first half to first round guy.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because I haven't watched him yet, but all the stuff I've read about him, he kind of started off hot, first 6 games, looks like he's going to be a top 10 pick, struggled the last couple of months, actually, probably the last 5 games, doesn't look quite like the same guy. So everyone's anticipating him going back to school. But like you're talking about, Grant, like, if he comes out and just deals through the playoff, shoot, like, and he's getting good reports coming out, like, teams are really ready for that opportunity. So why not?
I'm seeing in this most recent mock I just pulled up here, by the way, just to look at where they have Maui Noah, the tackle from Miami you're referencing. They've got him 9 to Kansas City. So cracking the back end of the top 10 at this point. All right, that's your quick breakdown, rough and dirty, first look at some of the draft prospects who are relevant to the college football playoff games this coming weekend and over the New Year's holiday. Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen will come back and wrap up Take Command next. Welcome back. Take Command. Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen, ahead of Week 18. This season winds down at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia on Sunday. All right, Logan, let's get to it then. Your player that you think eats for Washington on offense.
So I was thinking about this, man, and, because we got to do the production meeting, talk about this, and I don't have one player that I want to eat. I want to see the young guys, man. Like, they've done a good job the last couple of weeks playing good ball. Ben Sinnott's playing better. Johnny Newton's playing better. Bill's playing better. Connerly continues to improve. I want those guys to eat, man. I want those guys to look at those guys and say, man, we've got a couple pieces here to be excited about moving into the offseason. They're playing better football. They've matured as football players. And so really just as a fan of the team and a fan of those guys, I want to see those guys come out and have a hell of a game.
Defensively, I'm assuming, because you've been talking about it the last week or so, how well Bobby Wagner's played. He's closing in on 2,000 tackles. Bobby Wagner, chance to eat.
Dude, I'm so excited, man. Like, this is like one of those things that feels like this is obviously, I'm being hyperbolic, but like the moon landing. Like, I remember when I saw Bobby Wagner get 2,000 tackles, because the guys that are doing it or have done it are Ray Lewis and London Fletcher. Like, two of the best linebackers in the history of the NFL. And I do think it's kind of surprising that the guy with the second most tackles in the history of the league is not in the Hall of Fame, but that's a conversation for another day. So, Bobby Wagner is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Ray Lewis is a Hall of Famer. Why is our guy London Fletcher not in the Hall of Fame? Like, I'm having a hard time digesting that, But again, to see Bobby get 2,000 tackles is going to be really, really cool, man. That's very rarefied air, very special company to be keeping with those tackles.
As far as what I want to see in this game, I'm going to stick with my theme. We got more targets, more catches for Ben Sinnott last week. I'm going to continue to turn up the fader there. Want to see him finish strong. And I'd like to see Bill, who's gone for 95 yards in back-to-back games, have a big finish to the year. I'll be a little disappointed if they go back to just handing him the ball 6 or 7 times, because Rodriguez gets the bulk of the work. There's momentum here. I'm curious about the running back position and room going into the offseason. So let's see what Bill's got against one of the best defenses in the league. I want to really get him tested with a 15 to 17 carry day if they could stay on the field against these Eagles and see what that looks like.
No, I think that'd be fantastic. And again, I want Chris to get his opportunities as well, but I agree with you. I think seeing if we can get Bill to be productive against a really talented defense, I think that is it's got to be a priority.
All right. Well, it's been fun. It's been a good ep, and it's been I won't say a fun season, but it's been a season for sure, Logan. I've enjoyed doing the podcast with you. Luckily, it's not going anywhere. It's just about to ramp up, and it's going to get a lot more fun because the offseason, hope springing eternal, the draft, free agency, we're going to be here every step of the way on Take Command with multiple episodes a week breaking everything down. For producer Evan and for Logan, I'm Grant, thanking all of you for listening throughout the 2025 season. Wishing everybody, again, a happy, healthy, safe, and fun new year. Enjoy this final game as this season comes to a close. We're back at it shortly after the kick this weekend with your game breakdown.